Today I have Suresh Iriat with us on AudioGan, popularly known as E. Suresh. He's an Indian animator, director, and founder of his animation studio, Studio Eksaurus. He started his animation career with famous House of Animation soon after he graduated from National Institute of Design, Ahmedabad. Suresh was the first to launch clay animation commercials in India. He created the Amron battery advertisements, music video Bindu Re Bindu, the Simpu series for Channel V, and to name a few. Suresh has been instrumental in creating a market for animated ad films by going beyond the traditional technique and storytelling. It's a real honor to have you on AudioGan, Suresh. Thank you for giving us your time, and welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, Kedar. Looking forward to it.
Yeah. So this conversation, obviously, I've done a few interviews with Vaibhav Kumaresh, Nina Sabnani.
Right.
There are different insights which I've already captured in multiple episodes.
Correct.
This particularly, I wanted to do knowing your thoughts, what are your dreams and philosophy behind the animation world of India. So I've come up with 4 to 5 questions, and let's see where we go with this conversation. Cool. So the first one is slightly more philosophical in nature. What does the word continuum mean to you? I mean, how do you see this concept? What are your thoughts on that?
It's quite funny because to me, continuum sounds more like evolution, and because it's a continuous process of change. Maybe incremental to really small level, but eventually the eventual product is completely different from what it started off with. So why it is slightly funny is I always talk about Indian animation industry and the audience as an evolving one, and from nothing it started much later than when it started in the West. It started much later here, and it's really taking a lot of time to evolve and become a robust animation industry along with a great viewing audience. So to me, things have to keep moving, and continuum is of essence. If things are not moving, and then it is dead. It's no more. It's immobile, and there is no point in staying in an environment which doesn't have continuum. That I don't think stability is equivalent to no change. Stability is in continuum. I really think people always attribute stable as something that is not changing, but I think change is the constant, and that way continuum is a lot more relevant to our world and our being.
So I wanted to also understand the other side of things, which is how do you see continuum as a concept when you are animating things? Because yes, live action has certain sort of continuity, but when it comes to those static objects which are being moved, how do you translate the philosophy which you just shared into the kind of work which you do? Like, what does that mean, and how do you translate that into the work?
Yeah, so it's pretty amazing the way continuum has relevance in the animated world as well, because each and every image is a static. Is an inanimate static that is creating this amazing life in animation because of the slight incremental changes that happen in each and every, whether it is drawing, whether it is an object animation, which is or even if you kind of animate a real person and kind of move him, you are working with static. We are working with unchanging still images, and then when that becomes motion and that becomes life. So it is it's extremely important to note that in animation, there is a very famous quote. I don't know who said that, animation is not about the art of drawings that move, but the art of movements that are drawn.
Wow.
So, I think it's very relevant to what you're asking about, art of movements that are drawn. So, you kind of capture every moment of static from a movement, and that's how you kind of bring something to life. And I think, yeah, it's extremely philosophical and deep in that sense. So.
Yeah. Interesting. I'll just change a track a bit. In one of your interviews on YouTube, you mentioned that you can animate anything and bring to life. I think it was with, I don't remember the channel. But yeah, so I wanted to ask you further on that what all elements bring life to a character or an inanimate object, or apart from movement, what all things can be brought into a particular static thing and then bring life to that?
I think it's up to us as people who animate to see and identify that personality in anything that is inanimate, to find that personality and give it that particular character to breathe life into it. So I really believe that anything inanimate can also have a life. It's like I've heard that people know, the people who work with stones, they know which is a male stone, which is a female stone. Similarly, like expert carpenters know that this is the wood that is a female wood and this is a male wood, and they can understand even sex within stones and objects, like and so I feel it's about how we see personality. I can see in the studio, I can see life in the speakers, in the mics, in the air conditioner, there's lights that are looking at us from top. I can see life in everything. So I mean, it is it's up to how and when we need to give them life, so
No, but when you give life, does it have to be justified or denoted with a movement, or just because even a small expression is a movement, right? So anything apart from movement, it's a very tricky one.
No, the sign of life is something that I mean, in our world of animation, you need to kind of move it to feel it, right? And even if you want to make others feel that, okay, see, this is the way I'm seeing this particular object coming to life, then I have to animate and show. So I mean, it is not it's not like a feeling whether this had life or what. It's not like a dream-like thing that people have in general. It's for an animator, we need to really work behind it to breathe in that sort of character and give it life. It is pretty much it's not as philosophic when it comes to breathing life into a real object. You need to really look into this object. Okay, this is it's a piece of cloth that is lying there. What sort of life should I give it? Whether I should make it into a snake, or whether I should make it into a whether I should whether I should have an imaginary person inside it, and so then it kind of walks like floats around like a ghost, or it depends on what sort of personality you want to give and what context you want to use that particular animation. So it is pretty much physical, but when you look at the whole act of giving life to it, is a phenomenally abstract attribute. It's not something that when you ask a person to act in a film, I mean, the actor brings out character. He has read about that particular character and he brings that out. But here we are trying to breathe in life to something that has no life. So first of all, for an animation filmmaker, you have to give it life, and then give it personality, and give it even the acting cues. So, for an actor, a trained actor, it comes pretty naturally to him or her. But for an animator, it's way too many things to do. He has to even play God. So it becomes pretty complicated as a process. But yes, I really believe that the kind of life that you see or perceive or you want to see in an object is a possibility that it can be made into a reality. It can be a perceived reality, but one can definitely bring it to life.
So is it safe to say that I think movement is... So what I should have like reconstructed the question, and I was saying, because the way I was thinking, movement I was slightly mapping to locomotion. So maybe movement is a inherent quality of life.
Right.
But locomotion can be or cannot be. As in going from point A to point B could be subjective to the animator itself.
Correct.
But
how it goes.
Yeah, how it goes, or no, not even how it goes. Actually, I would like... So help me understand here. I think movement, what I understood is movement is life. Is it safe to say that? Because even if you're showing, like, say, light, and if it's slightly expanding, and so it starts having that breath, right? So it may not move from one point A to point B, but it's still breathing. So it's life.
I think even if it is breathing, so even if you kind of animate, using a dimmer, like just make it brighter and softer and brighter and softer.
Wow.
You will feel that it is coming to life. So I mean, again, that is animation.
Correct. Yeah, I got it.
It's crazy. Some years back, one of the film festivals we went to attend, and the organizers somehow thought that because we were studying animation at NID, and the film festival, it was held in Trivandrum. And they felt that, because they are all animators, we should put them up in an animation center. And, the animation center is a place where they, try and, break the habits of drug addicts and drunkards and, bring them back to normal life. So we were put up amidst all those sort of people, because there was a bit of a confusion that, we are animators ourselves, and we need to be put up in an animation center. So,
yeah, interesting. Last 3-4 questions which I have are more towards understanding your dreams and your vision about the animation world in India. How do you envision future of animation in India? I mean, what are your thoughts and dreams around it?
See, for me, I've always looked at... I don't idolize so much of Disney animation movement. Of course, I respect it, and I love the animation films that they've done. But I dream about an emergence of Indian animated content, which is original, and that dream is more connected with the Japanese reality of how anime and manga is today. It's more relatable to that than the Disney dream, which is having the characters popular around the world. One of the very reasons why I love the way Japanese have...
Sorry, but when you say Disney, it's also the Pixar
yes,
and everything? It just
It is Disney, Pixar, where they look at most simplistic storytelling, formula-driven, which can work across the world, versus something that has your essence. I feel India has a lot of potential, and we have a lot of storytellers. We have storytelling ingrained in our culture. in our bringing up, and all around us, folk stories and mythologies, and I mean there are several stories that float around us, and I feel there is a missed opportunity that we have here, where we can convert many of them into original Indian content. I always look up at Miyazaki and Studio Ghibli as a movement, actually, where with animation they have created this fantastical worlds into reality, and people believe, and people really yearn to see such films in Japan. And I consider Japan as most evolved country, and I think they belong to another planet, but they are still within the earth. But the way they have they had a huge, grand legacy of brilliant live action filmmaking, who we all used to worship and study.
Akira.
Yeah, there are many amazing filmmakers, and the way animation has taken over Japan today, the way people take on the characters, and they want to live those characters, the animated characters, in reality. I really find that as a massive shift. That people love to be in the fantasy world, and they're embracing fantasy as reality. It's a very interesting zone to be, and I think many of the stories that the Japanese come up with are not digestible for the world. Their stories and the sub-stories and the complexity of plots, and the way they merge technology, sci-fi to reality, etc., are like really mind-boggling for many other nations, who are still evolving. There's a lot of evolution left to be somewhere at par with Japanese way of thinking. Here in India, I feel that we need somebody like Miyazaki, or I would myself want to do something in that scale, where bringing some of our own stories to that fantastic scale of believability, and even though it is fantasy, and making it like our second reality. I mean, our reality is first, and it's something that is very similar to what Bollywood is doing. But Bollywood has evolved with time and age, etc., etc. They have not changed. People have called it cheap. People have laughed at Bollywood. But today, for entertainment, when it comes to entertainment, I'm not calling Bollywood as the ultimate form of cinema or anything like that. But it's
mainstream.
It's a respectable stream of entertainment from India, which has stayed pretty true to Indian styles and Indian fantasies, Indian kitsch, and because they didn't try to imbibe so much of, or borrow so much from the West. Of course, yes, there are many story plots, many filmmaking techniques, etc., that are heavily inspired by the West, but still the adaptation is very indigenous and Indian. So there were, I think, in the 80s and 70s, people laughed at a lot of Bollywood film internationally, but today people love it. I mean, wherever I travel, I mean, people look us up with a lot of respect that we make Bollywood films. So it is one sort of evolution where India has found a form of entertainment which is based on a medium that is first invented in the West. Cinema is a medium that was not found in India. It was found in the West, and we have adapted that medium and gave it our own form and shape and color to it.
Started telling our stories.
Our stories with it.
Sorry to interrupt here, but what I was trying to visualize is, as I was trying to imagine, is that the Bollywood So when you said Disney, I was trying to compare Bollywood, and then we have a parallel cinema also, right? Where Ardha Satya and Salam Bombay and those kind of films are
Yes.
made. So are you comparing like that, or Bollywood being...
No, Bollywood being different from Hollywood or different from the international classy live action films. That's what I meant. It could be considered classless in that sense by the critiques, but it has its own class because it is an original adaptation of a medium or a technology by Indians. And it is evolving to become perfect in whatever way it has to. So, and in a country like India, unlike Japan, which is so diverse with so many languages and cultures, like I think people say every 500 meters in India when you walk, the dialect changes, and even the food habits change, the way you dress change. So that sort of diversity when you're working. Having one language is itself very tough. Something that is something that a Keralite would find as intellectual would not be something that somebody sitting in the UP would find as satisfying, gratifying. Something that the person sitting in Lucknow would create as a ghazal or some meaningful, maybe wouldn't cut an ice with somebody sitting in Tamil Nadu. So there is so much of diversity in our country with the geography and the distances and the cultures. So it is difficult to find a language for animation as well. But the advantage with animation is it is not. It can like really elevate beyond these diversities. Sometimes a film without any language also works in an animation, and it can travel across. It can resonate emotionally with people. So I believe in the power of animation, and I believe in it becoming a superpower from India. And I think we, as the current generation of animation filmmakers, need to push towards bringing that dream a reality, making that dream a reality. It requires massive efforts and sacrifices to actually make that a reality.
But do you think, so what could be, so this is one of the questions which I also asked Vaibhav, that we are slightly stuck when it comes to animation, at least. Obviously it's different if you see your kind of work,
Right.
but with mythology very much embedded in our thought process. So even if we go all out, I think Chhota Bheem is like commercially obviously in experimental places we have gone leaps ahead, but when it comes to commercially promoting animation, it's to a certain extent still that Ramayana, that Chhota Bheem. And so why do you think that's happening? Because if you want to explore those boundaries and expand those boundaries of different storytelling, because the other extreme is coward storytelling, which Nina ma'am told me about. So there's this other extreme
the
where
folk storytelling is a different art altogether, which have to be, those are crafts that have to be nurtured and kept alive. And Kathakali, Yakshagana, all these are storytelling through performances, right? So they all have to be nurtured and they need to evolve with time. So for them to survive. But in terms of mythology being a key influencer, again, I would go back to the same thing that I spoke about. These are the two well-known stories that are popular across the country. Despite language differences, cultural differences, etc., etc., these are stories that people revere, respect, and know it by heart. These stories are known to, and these are told to even the children of next generation by the parents. Of course, there is a generation loss. So, the many stories are forgotten because only the key elements of the stories are transmitted from generation to generation. So there is all the characters from these stories, Mahabharata and Ramayana, are memorable. and they have all been like kind of idolized in a way, whether in the form of worshipping in temples or as superheroes in stories and whatever. They have been idolized in that sense. So their popularity is very well known. I don't think Chhota Bheem as a series would have anything to do with real Bheem, but it's just borrowing a name which is just a hook for people to connect with something in mythology, probably. So it helps as a driver. A name Arjun helps in many films. These are the names that help people connect and correlate with certain contexts from the mythology. And of course, there are many philosophers around the world who have also acknowledged that there are no story plots or relationships that are unexplored in these two epics. There are all sort of interpretations that are possible: philosophic, deep, materialistic, physical, funny, cartoony, violence. All sort of interpretations are possible from these two epics. So that is there. Of course, they are pretty traditional in their sense, but and there are no generation of such stories anymore. So there are the popularity of such characters, the new age characters. We have not seen any characters like this in the 60 or 100 years, past 100 years, which is also a big problem. So in manga, in Japan, the manga is a comic thing. They keep generating new characters. They keep putting them into the crowd, and depending on the way audience love the characters, they look at the possibility of converting them into animations. So there is a constant readership that is there, but in our country, the readership is something that is we are missing out. So for a new character to come out, there has to be so much acceptance, so much readable. People should read about those new characters. Then there is a possibility that the third Ramayana, Mahabharata, and one more thing can happen. One more epic thing, or there has to be many, but we have not been able to crack that beyond. We have not been able to crack another popular story across the country.
I think with the launch of any particular character, if there's enough thought, enough literature provided, maybe that can help.
Yeah, absolutely. I think literature really helps in propagation of these characters and stories. And in the case of Ramayana and Mahabharata, the folk way of narrating the stories helped a lot in propagation. Even those who couldn't read knew Ramayana and Mahabharata because the way they would sing a song about Ram or the Ramayana or Mahabharata or Bhagavata or whatever. That is the way people understood the story. There were, in every temple, there would be 7 days of storytelling on Bhagavad or something. So people know these stories. There is continuously they are hammered onto people. So it's a great way of propagation of stories without paper and written text in that sense.
Correct. Interesting. So moving on to the last question which I have is, I'm going to club the last two ones. In fact, what you mentioned right now makes complete sense, and I'm just trying to connect the dots here. When, say, Dadasaheb Phalke, we started live action films.
Harishchandra.
That time again we started with mythology.
Right.
And now we are totally in a different world of Bollywood altogether.
Right.
So is it a good indicator, or how do you see? So we are starting off the animation industry probably last 20 years with this kind of format where stories are more mythological or things like that. When or how do you see maybe 100 years down the line the animation world in India?
I think this is again to do with your first question continuum. Even though the entry of or the quest for creating new stories, original stories in animation, would be something that would have started with probably my career. I think it might be 20 years old, So, and that is also a very nascent group of people are trying to tell stories on their own. It's not like the entire Indian animation industry is trying to, create original content. So there are only very few, maybe 5% of the 100% of animation industry would be trying to create their own content. So, but it's happening at a great pace. People are trying to create content at a great pace with the technology, advent of technology and other reach, etc., etc. I'm sure the evolution is going to be much quicker than we could imagine. What it took for Bollywood to evolve. Yeah, from Harishchandra, Dada Saheb Phalke's first film to where it is now, it would be pretty quicker, and is what I'm imagining. If we don't miss the bus, it's very important that we give predominance to creating content in using animation and not try and treat animation like a technique, which mostly people consider it as a technique. It's as a medium of storytelling. If you consider and create content, then there would be a huge outpour of stories and films and series and things that people would be exposed to, and slowly it will become something that is acceptable for our young and grown-up audience in the country. So you will develop a nice, fertile audience base in the country, which would eventually make more and more animation content to come out, more and more animation filmmakers to emerge. So as it's a demand and supply thing. There is no demand right now, so supply is less. More demand.
But isn't it like movies from Disney or like say Pixar also? They like, since we are like moving towards a more one system, globalization is like at a rapid pace due to social media and other reach, like Netflix coming in. So people are building that taste and they're building. So I think the audience is ready. Is it, are animators ready, or is it the other way around?
No, so it is both.
Or is the audience not ready enough to accept Indian animation stories?
It is partly that, when we are feeding all our cartoon channels, children channels, are showing most of the rerun Japanese and Hollywood or Western Disney stories, which may be 20-year-old, like Doraemon that they used to show here was 30 years old. But kids used to love Doraemon here. But it's an evolved product. I'm not undermining Doraemon's quality. It's great quality. That they have done it in the 70s, but it still has the appeal, which is one of the greatest qualities of animation, the large shelf life. I mean, it never dies. So that property they have used, and they have been exposing our children with such amazing evolved animation. Indian animation filmmakers are not that evolved yet to create, unless until we make a few series and, make errors, learn from it, do better and better and better products. Our kids will not probably sit and watch it, So if we don't start now, when we make another thing 5 years down the line, one series which is like the 60s quality or 60s style of storytelling, it may not be accepted very well by the children, because they are already used to a certain kind of edit speed, a certain kind of quality in animation, the complexity of storytelling. So when we go with very simplistic storytelling, they will find it pretty lame. So we may lose out on the audience. So if we don't move fast.
So a lot of more responsibility.
Oh, it is huge.
And it's like continuously hard work.
It is huge responsibility amongst the animation fraternity to, create content and revive. Because, there's no point in... So whatever content that is coming is good, even though, as someone who would try and look at high quality animation films as the benchmark. For me, maybe I may not find any of the series that are on air right now of that great quality, but it's good to have them, So let our children also get exposed to such things, to get a feel of it's the feel of what Indian animation is like. Even though we don't want to say that we are part of that Indian animation, but because we are we may be pretty snobbish in that sense, saying that we can make much better quality animation, but we are not doing it. So that's where the paradox is. So there are people who are doing it at the cost that is required to feed to the children here, but it's bad. It's not great quality in that sense. But nevertheless, people are consuming it. So it's like probably how Bollywood used to have a time when they used to like really create trashy movies, but at the same time there were many filmmakers who made classy stuff. But now today there's a combination of there's a kind of balance that's happening with quality and of
Commercial.
content and commercial value. So that will happen faster, like I said, with as long as we are all trying to create that audience here. I think all of us are in for the same cause. So.
Suresh, I have tons of more questions because this is way too interesting and I can see the passion. But last, this is like a surprise for you because
Okay.
Vaibhav Kumaresh helped me in framing these questions also.
Okay.
So I have like last quick 4 rapid fire questions
Huh.
for you to just understand and document what are your thoughts.
Okay.
So what's exciting about ad films for you? Like, what's the most exciting thing about ads? Like quick answers,
That
maybe.
it lasts really less time. You don't need to mull over it for years. It is done and over within in a month or two, and you get to get the results very quickly.
Okay. What excites you in a script?
Possibilities.
Wow. What kind of music do you listen to?
I listen to all sort of music, even though I am trained in Carnatic music.
Oh wow, actually.
But that has opened my ears to world music, and I cannot say no to any sort of music.
But any preferred genre?
I listen to electronic, I listen to trance, I listen to jazz. I mean, all sort of music. It depends on my mood. I love music. Period. So.
Cool. And what are the inspiring trends in the Indian animation film, or maybe global? Let's keep it global because we spoke about Indian. But yeah, what are the trends?
One lovely thing that I'm observing because I travel with many film festivals and as jury, as participant internationally. I'm seeing that the younger generation, the 20s and the 19, the teens and the people in the 20s are creating a lot of animation films. In every year there are around more than 2,000 to 3,000 short films that are made worldwide. The welcome trend that I'm really fascinated by is that most of them prefer to work with their hand.
Oh, like cell and like traditional.
Yeah, they work a tactile medium with whether it is with clay or objects or drawing on paper. They are not, that's a zone, that period of people getting influenced by digital is over. The young generation of today's, who we may call as millennials or whatever, they are the ones who are really understanding the essence of tactility, and they are going for mostly the films that are done with hand. And that is a great welcome change that I'm seeing around the world, because around 10 years ago it was a huge digital revolution which has crippled Indian animation as well, with most of the talented animators going into CGI mode of animation, because that is what the BPO mode of Indian animation industry requires. It is a welcome change, that I'm seeing the young generation going for hand-done films. So, which I hope is a trend that we will catch up with quickly.
I won't say it's over. The digital is over, but it will keep going in cycles because that's the continuum part of it.
Digital is a great form, a great technology platform, but how you use it as an ingredient and not be a slave to digital technology. That's where the balance lies. When you get a new technology, you kind of just get overwhelmed by it. That time is over. We all were those people who got really overwhelmed by digital thing. It was during our times when CDs came in, DVDs, Blu-rays, then finally, data. We don't have anything. Films are no more in like cassettes or spools or anything. It's somewhere in some data. It's in pixels and it's in bytes. So people are really going back to those times when tangible products could be there to call it film, or I got a new DVD or a film, or that. Before that, people used to have VHS tapes and beta tapes and all those things. There is a lot of value in some of those mediums. I mean, I often talk about it, and I think I've repeated myself over and above. I mean, I've seen this reverse trend in Japan where people are going back to shooting on film, and people are going back to recording on cassettes. And people are paying a lot of money to get the cassettes because it doesn't have the digital no sound thing. It has that thing which people feel gives a sonic platform which got a lot more soul into it. The music is soulful when you hear the noise of the room in which it was recorded in than it being like digital. So there is a shift that I'm seeing. So when I'm seeing this change in animation, it is really encouraging to me.
Wow. I think this is a good note to end this. It was wonderful talking to you. A lot of food for thought and a lot of aspirational stuff also.
Super talking to you together. It was nice.
Sorry, I would like to add one more thing which we discussed in the beginning. Like about the small clip arts and not clip art, but small static posts which you put on Instagram. So what is that, and how can people follow you on social media?
I think my inspiration comes from reality, and I don't think you cannot be influenced by your surroundings. And the moment you are not influenced by your surroundings, you will not have any ideas. And for me, the people I see, the people I interact with, the events that I see it from a different lens, and that comes into me as stories. And I sketch wherever I go, I draw whatever I see, and I put my perspective into those events that I witness, and those are the ones which I post on Instagram or Facebook or wherever, which is public domain platforms, where I share these stories on Instagram. You can follow me on Suresh Ariat. But these are doodles and sketches and whatever I do on a daily basis, and I try to be pretty regular with it.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's very important. Regular and continuous.
Maybe every week once, sort of a regularity. But try. I think I keep my sketchbook alive. I keep filling it with interesting anecdotes and stories that I see around.
Cool. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Suresh. Thank you. It was wonderful.
Thanks so much, Kedar. I mean, it was wonderful talking to you.
Thank you.
And that's it from today's Gyan session. Catch us on iTunes, Saavn, Stitcher, or any podcasting app you use. Do rate us on iTunes and follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Stay tuned for more Gyan on audiogyan.com. Till then, bye.